On today's show, the Nets' veteran-heavy rotation during their comeback win over the Pistons raises questions about their draft lottery fate. I'll tell you why, despite 10 losses prior, Brooklyn's tank strategy continues to leave much to be desired on today's episode of Locked On Nets.
You are Locked On Nets, your daily Brooklyn Nets podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome in to Locked On Nets right here on the Locked On Podcast Network, now the #1 sports podcast network. It's your team, the Brooklyn Nets, every single day. I'm Erik Slater, Brooklyn Nets beat reporter for ClutchPoints.com. Thank you for making me your first listen of the day. Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. FanDuel is giving you a way to turn that energy into even bigger potential wins with a college basketball parlay profit boost. Head to FanDuel.com to get started. That's FanDuel.com. FanDuel, play your game. And on today's episode, I got Lucas Kaplan coming on the show. We're going to talk about Brooklyn's stunning comeback win over the Detroit Pistons. We're going to talk about their tank strategy, individual performances, and more. Let's go. And joining the show now, we got Lucas Kaplan of Nets Daily. And Lucas, the Nets won a game for the first time in, I don't know exactly how long, but it was 10-game losing streak prior to this. And they come back and they stun the Detroit Pistons 107-105, come back from 23 points down in the second half in a game where Cade Cunningham was out. Several other main Pistons contributors were out in this game. And the main storyline coming out of this game is going to be the fact that the Nets rode a completely veteran-heavy rotation, and they benched two of their three active rookies, including their starting point guard, Nolan Troy, down the stretch of this game. And they seemingly went all out to win this game, despite them being in a very tightly contested tank race. So I want to talk about that with you. I want to preface my initial take by saying it sucks that the Nets had a spirited comeback win like this. They played extremely hard. They got good individual performances from several guys that we're going to talk about. It sucks that the way the NBA has structured itself, that we have to talk about the tank implications of this after what should just be a really fun comeback win to watch. But that is a situation that we are in based on the way the league is structured. And that's the situation the Nets are in. And despite that, this process in this game, playing Michael Porter Jr. 40 minutes, benching Nolan Troy down the stretch, completely going all out during this game to win, in my opinion, it's not the end of the world, but I think that their tank process, through last year and this season, has oftentimes left a lot to be desired. And look, they had lost 10 straight games prior to this, so I'm not going to act like it's the end of the world. But when you look at the upcoming schedule, and they have the Grizzlies on Monday. We'll talk about that game. But then they have a lot of really easy games coming up down the stretch. Every win is, really could come back to bite you. So this one, the players played hard. That's their prerogative. That I'm glad. I think everybody should be happy that they play hard. But the rotations and the decisions, it signaled a team that is completely trying to win despite, them being in this really tightly contested tank race. And I think that that's going to ruffle feathers with a lot of Nets fans. But what is your takeaway from the way that the Nets approach this game?
Maybe they're saving up for what they're going to have to get to when they play these really bad teams. Maybe it's just a continued philosophy. Like, they haven't really tanked that hard this year. And Jordy has been trying to win these games during this 10-game losing streak. I don't know. I think maybe, and fans don't like to hear this, and I understand why, but the human side of it, just carrying this losing streak with you in a locker room, seeing a chance to win and jumping at it, continuing to reward guys for performance and effort. Ben Suraf played a pretty poor 4 minutes in the first half. Like, he had a bad turnover, and then that was it. Nolan Traore has certainly played better than he did yesterday, and so he only got 15 minutes. I'm sure the Nets believe in the continued rewards for behavior, for performance. So, and when you couple that with a 10-game losing streak, it's like I think they feel like Jordy and the players have earned the right to go out there and be 16-47 instead of 15-48, I believe is the record. But pretty unbelievable win. And hey, did I not call it? Did I not call it?
Lucas is like Nostradamus over here when it comes to unpredictable Nets outcomes or, really surprising Nets outcomes. Lucas, you did call it, but go on.
Anyway, no, I just wanted to know. So Erik, if you didn't see his Twitter, got engaged over the weekend. Congratulations.
Thank you.
At what point in the night did you check your phone and see how involved were you with the Nets during this?
Well, yeah, I joked in my group chat. If you guys go on my group chat with the other reporters, if you guys go on the Twitter, you see me down on one knee. You can't really see what I'm doing with my hands, and it looks like I'm going for a ring, but I was really just checking the Nets score during the fourth quarter run. And I was like, hey, they're really going to win this game, huh? They're really going to do this. I had a whole, engagement party and all this stuff. I scheduled it months back, and I saw that game. I'm like, look, Saturday game against the Pistons. That's the only day that a lot of my family is available. I don't have to do a pod that night because it's a Saturday, and it's probably going to be a blowout loss. But what do you know? The Nets, they always keep you on your toes. So I did check throughout the night, and I get a lot of family and friends coming up to me during the party, like, the Nets beat the Pistons tonight? I'm like, I guess the Nets beat the Pistons. I was logged out for the night, but then I came back and I got the rewatch on Synergy, and yeah, it was definitely interesting. And look, back to what we were talking about. I agree with you, Lucas. I think a lot of fans, like 10-game losing streak, a lot of fans are like, oh, they could lose out. They can lose 25 straight games to close the season, and that would be great. And I would say to those fans, I understand your point, but you don't have to be in the locker room with these guys. And, like, I was in the locker room in Miami after both of those losses, and it was not a positive, it was not like a very jovial place to be. Like, these guys, they take these losses on the chin. Like, I know that it's a tanking season, but it is hard for them. So I do think when you see an opportunity to win a game like this, like Lucas said, you can jump at it if you're Jordi Fernandez. But my only gripe would be playing Michael Porter Jr. 40 minutes during this game, playing Nolan Troy 0 fourth quarter minutes, pulling Ben Saraf after 4 minutes. I mean, that he's been playing bad lately, so I understand that a little bit more. But
I will say Saraf is probable with back tightness.
Yeah.
So maybe it could have been, Jordi didn't say it, but could have been injury related.
Yeah, but just like playing MPJ.
But still.
Playing MPJ 40 minutes, playing all these guys, all these heavy minutes. I mean, MPJ has played 10 or 11 straight games. And like, look, I understand you're trying to win. And look, I said it on my podcast after the second Miami game that I don't think the Nets want to potentially have a 16, 17 game losing streak. As good as that would be for the tank, they don't like the optics of that. They don't like what it does to the locker room. And look, I'm not going to pretend that there's no value out of a comeback win like this, showing, these rookie guys that kind of grit, putting that on the court. Like, there is a culture aspect to that. I know some Nets fans are going to throw something at their computer screen as I say the word culture, but there is, like, the benefit of that isn't zero, but we saw it last year. I mean, every win, really can come back to bite you. And this tank race is so tightly contested. The Nets were in 2, and now after tonight, when the Wizards probably lose, they're going to be tied for 3rd, maybe falling into 4th. So with the upcoming schedule, I just kind of question the way that the Nets went about this. Look, if you want to, if you have all these guys available and you want to play them, that's fine. Like Michael Porter Jr. playing 10 games straight, like whatever, that's fine. But to me, benching the rookies and just like completely leaning into a veteran dominant win, I don't really agree with that. I mean, like we said, like, you want to see positive things from the rookies during these wins. You really don't want to see veteran-led wins. And like, we got some nice Danny Wolf moments in the fourth quarter, but for the most part, like the strategy, I question it. And, it does, for me, bring up the question of, does this mean that they're really going to go really hard tanking once they get to like those Sacramento matchups and beyond that? Like, that is my rationale for this. We know, I should have said it earlier, they're resting Michael Porter Jr. against the Memphis Grizzlies, but even with MPJ out, the Grizzlies have like 9 guys on their injury report. Like, they could very well win that game over the Grizzlies. They might be favorites in that game. So that might be 2 straight wins right there. So this leads me to believe, them doing this, that maybe Jordi has an idea, when they get to that Sacramento game and then the really easy stretch after it to close the season, that's going to be the point where like they're really running out some like skeleton crew lineups.
And they are 3-18 in their last 21 games, even with the win. That's exactly kind of the record that you would anticipate for this third quarter of the season. And I do think it's very possible that there is a window where they're allowed to kind of compete and go for wins before the plug is really pulled. But man, when you're in a game and you're down 20 and you're against, I guess there's two schools of thought, because when the loss is seemingly in hand, and then we got to admit, like Noah Clowney and Day'Ron Sharp are still, Noah's 21. Day'Ron might be part of, like, who knows? These guys aren't quite mercenaries like Dennis Schroeder and Cam Johnson, who
Zaire
were.
Williams, too. We could throw Zaire into that
You
conversation.
could throw Zaire in there, yeah.
Two biggest shots of the game, yeah.
Yeah. And so it's not quite to the level of some of those early season wins last year, but it's March, you're down 15. Like, you expect the opponent across from you, Detroit, even without Cade and Asar, to handle business at that point. JB Bickerstaff says they stopped respecting the game in the second half, which is a hell of a backhanded insult to the Nets. But on the other hand, it's like, if you're going to win a game, it might as well be like that style of game. I could see that argument too, being down to this great team. But I just get hung up on, like Erik said, not to make it all about the rookies, but Drake Powell's down in the G League. Yegor's not even playing. Ben, maybe injuries, benched. And then Danny's really the only one in the late game rotation. Like, it leaves a weird taste in your mouth, I think, for sure, as exciting as the game was. And as much as they tried to blow it at the end. Can we talk about the last two possessions?
We got to go over the actual game flow. But yeah, just like what you said, I mean, it's a curious decision to me, especially when you have the Memphis Grizzlies on Monday, who are going to be tanking extremely hard. And that game could very well be a win. Like I said on my last pod after the second Heat loss, like, they have a difficult stretch coming up. The only easy game that they have is the Memphis Grizzlies game. And if they lost that game, this losing streak could get up to like 18 games. So I thought that they were going to go for that Grizzlies game. And look, if they lose this game against the Pistons, maybe they're playing MPJ against the Grizzlies on Monday. I mean, you can't say, but you just look at around the league. Like, look at Washington, look at Indiana, look at Sacramento, all of these teams that have shut all these guys down, how hard some of these teams are tanking. And look, I know the Nets had 10 straight losses before this. There's going to be at least 3 people in the comments who are saying they lost 10 straight before this. Like, how much do you want them to lose? And it's like, look, I understand that, but look at the upcoming schedule. And that's why I say, if you're going to go for it and you're going to win the game like this, you better, when it gets to the end of the season, you better be trying to shut some guys down. And you better be trying to stack some losses because, the Nets could get up to like 22 or 23 wins. If you look at the schedule, I mean, they have 5-6 games against tanking teams to close the season, and they're at 16. And those teams are going to be, even if you're tanking really hard, there's no guarantee that those games are losses because those teams are also going to be tanking really hard. So it can be like a coin flip. So I think Lucas and I agree. It's tough. It's a tough situation to have to talk about this. It's tough for the Nets to have to even think about it. And the win, the comeback, it's not like there's no positives to it. There are some, and it's, it was nice to see guys battle, I'm sure, for some Nets fans, but the process, when the ultimate goal right now, we talk about the goals, I think 1A and 1B, draft position and rookie development. And both of those took a back seat to them winning in this game, it sounded like. So definitely a curious decision. But I do want to get into some of the actual performances in this game, some of the craziness down the fourth quarter, some of the bounces that did not go the Nets' way in terms of the tanking aspect of it. So we'll get into all that when we continue Locked On Nets after a quick break. Guys, spring is a natural reset point, and if there's one thing that can quietly cost businesses money, it's messy communication, missed calls, scattered texts, no clear thread of who said what. That's why today's episode is brought to you by Quo, spelled Quo, the smarter way to run your business communications. Quo is the #1 rated business phone system on G2 with over 3,000 reviews, trusted by more than 90,000 businesses. It lets your entire team share one business number so you never miss a call, text, or opportunity. Guys, the part that I love, everything lives in one clean thread. Calls, texts, voicemails. The whole team sees the conversation, so nothing falls through the cracks. And the AI summaries save serious time by logging calls and highlighting the next steps automatically. It just makes your business feel more organized and responsive. Make this the season where no opportunity and no customer slips away. Try Quo free and get 20% off your first 6 months at quo.com/LockedOnNBA. That's QUO.com/LockedOnNBA. Quo. No missed calls, no missed customers. Shoot your shot on PrizePicks and get $50 instantly in lineups when you play your first $5. That's right, PrizePicks is now giving $50 in lineups when you sign up and play your first $5 lineup, and it makes every dunk, every assist, and every big play that much more exciting. PrizePicks is the #1 daily fantasy sports picks app, and it's super simple to play. Guys, what you'll love about PrizePicks, it's easy. You pick more or less on 2 to 6 player stat projections, and if your picks are right, you can cash in. You can build lineups across tons of sports: basketball, baseball, hockey, college hoops, soccer, golf, and more. And one feature you'll really like is early payouts. If your player gets off to a hot start, you may have the option to cash out winnings before the game even finishes. It's a really fun way to test your sports knowledge and stay locked into the action. Download the PrizePicks app today and use code LOCKEDONNFL to get $50 in lineups after you play your first $5 lineup. Let's go LOCKEDONNFL to get $50 in lineups after you play your first $5 lineup. PrizePicks. It's good to be right. All right, coming back from the break, continuing today's Locked On Nets episode, got Lucas Kaplan of Nets Daily here. And Lucas, we spoke about in the first segment the Nets process, Nets leaning into their veterans, benching several rookies during this game. Why that is definitely a questionable decision. But there was also just, it seemed like there was almost like a karmic energy in Little Caesars Arena that wanted the Nets to win this game. Because like I'm watching it down the stretch of this game, and there was a sequence where I think it was like the 6-minute mark. MPJ banks in a 3, which was a huge shot. Day'Ron Sharpe, a couple possessions later, hits an above the break 3, which, we can count on one hand how many of those he's hit this season. Then not long after that, Javonte Green has a wide open dunk and he clanks it off the front of the rim and it bounces out of bounds and it goes to the net. So there were just a few plays. The Nets turned the ball over on the final possession of the game. Noah Clowney, it hits off his foot and goes out. The Pistons get a wide open 3. Duncan Robinson can't hit it. Jalen Duren gets a mid-range. It bounces off front rim. It's like the bounces were going the Nets' way from a winning perspective and not going the Nets' way from a tanking perspective. So I don't know, man. Like it just seemed like it was a night where the Nets tried to do the right things, to the basketball gods, and maybe the basketball gods value winning more than the tank. Maybe they think that's the most ethical way, and they sent some of those balls in the Nets' direction. But what do you think about the overall way the end of this game played out? Because I'm sure there were some Nets fans who were throwing their remotes at televisions.
What do you think happened on the last defensive possession? I think it seems like, did MPJ not know whether he was in the game or not? Because Duncan gets a wide open corner 3. Zaire
covering him.
But do you see, and you can go back and look at the clip that I posted of the last minute of the game. MPJ is furious and confused about something after that possession, and he's standing way up the sideline near the coach's box, maybe he thought he was in, and then he and Danny are hashing something out right after. So it just appears, and of course the Duncan shot is wide open. Zaire maybe doesn't look like he knows who he's guarding. It looks like they weren't sure who was on the floor even, and it was weird. The Pistons didn't have a timeout, but I wrote it it felt
maybe they had a come to Jesus moment on the bench. They were like, "How can we blow this final possession? Oh shit, we're gonna win this game!"
Maybe the Nets front office has a Buffalo Wild Wings overtime style button where they can guarantee losses. But I wrote it. I said it felt like kind of both teams deserved to lose, but maybe more so the team that blew the 23-point lead as the #1 seed in the East. Other than that, I have to go back and look, but it feels like it's one of the first times Jordy just outright closed with Day'Ron in the starting lineup or in the best lineup over Claxton, just because Day'Ron was outplaying him and giving Jalen Duren some problems. In the past, if the bench has been playing a lot better, he'll just stick with the whole bench unit. But this was it felt like it's Day'Ron over Clax for this. So that was interesting to me. And then the other big story is Zaire played obviously really well.
Yeah, I think if we're talking about individual performances, I think Day'Ron Sharpe is probably the biggest story, because you're looking at some of the guys who are potentially like young developmental pieces. And if you're looking for wins within this game, despite it not being a good outcome tank-wise, Day'Ron Sharpe, I mean, he played his ass off down the stretch against Jalen Duren. And look, I'm not trying to, just sing all this praise for Day'Ron and like crush Nick, but Nick struggles against some of these more physical, higher level centers. And we saw it in this game. I mean, he had his struggles against Jalen Duren. Nick finishes with 2 points, 6 rebounds, 4 assists, 2 turnovers, 1 of 5 from the field in 29 minutes. And Day'Ron Sharpe comes in and he's just way more productive, 13.7 rebounds, 4 assists in 21 minutes, 6 of 10 from the field. And it's just like, it brings in the question, man, of like Day'Ron, can hold up with some of these guys. And there's games, sure, where Day'Ron doesn't look good, but I do think that it was interesting, as Lucas said, that Jordan Fernandez committed. And I think it was pretty clear that Day'Ron was playing better in this game, so it shouldn't be that surprising, but it's not something that we've seen Jordy do all that often. And like Day'Ron Sharpe, man, he's a player. Like he has some off games from time to time, sure, but I feel like, do you feel like there's more nights where you can see Day'Ron kind of hanging with some of these higher level centers? Do you feel like you see that more often when he gets the opportunities than when Nick is doing it? Because just it seems like Nick has been this season, in my opinion, there's been a lot of games where he plays better against these backup centers, against, sometimes a team has their starting guy missing or these lower level centers. And it just, I don't know, like as the season has progressed, it just seems like Nick's, production and his impact has kind of waned, in my opinion.
Yeah, I think Nick's, and we've had this discussion before, but it feels like so much of Nick's high-end impact in the past has been being one of the best play finishers in the league and mixing that in with a little bit of self-created offense, like faking dribble handoffs, right, pushing it in transition. And then this year, he's been playing more out of the high post and can mix that with some vision, hitting back cutters. He has 2 triple doubles. But the finishing numbers have dropped back to the levels of the last 2 years. Like and you combine that with the offensive rebounding push in the NBA. I've looked at it. I was looking at it last night. League-wide offensive rebounding percentage is at a 10-year high. So the last time it's 26% right now. Last time it was this high was 2014 or 15, I believe. I think the 2014 season. And it really just dilutes the other thing Nick is really good at, which is deterring shots in the paint and around the rim. And of course, switching. Like he is, from all areas of the court, hard to score over. And that's such an enticing skill set. And it landed him in Defensive Player of the Year talks for a time in the 2023 season. But with the finishing regression and the lack of kind of defensive rebounding force that he brings, also he has not had a great defensive rebounding roster around him for the last 4 years.
Yeah. Which
is a big deal. But, it just feels like Day'Ron's impact can be more consistent. Like there are very few nights where he's not going to bring you extra possessions on the offensive glass. This year, the finishing has taken a huge step forward. That might regress in the future, but it, for now, makes him, even more valuable. And then, he's always going to play hard on the defensive end, and he might not be the best shot deterrent like Nick is, but better defensive rebounding and some switchiness and like really good hands and smarts. I don't know. It just feels like he's more capable of a consistent night-to-night output, even if, we might not see a 20-point triple-double from him anytime soon.
Yeah, I just feel like Nick, I've spoken about this in the past, but with Nick's limitations in terms of like his size, he needs to play at such a high motor all of the time to make up for that, weight deficiency, that strength deficiency, where Day'Ron plays hard all the time. I think he has a really good motor, but it's just like, it's a little bit easier for him because he has that strength. Like he doesn't have to try to overcompensate with just this crazy amount of effort and just like this frenetic pace going everywhere all around the court. And he might do that anyway, but I just feel like Day'Ron's baseline physicality, kind of plays better on some nights. And like you said, like I said the same exact thing that you just said on my last Fan Take Friday episode, but I got asked to give like an evaluation of each of the Nets players throughout the season. I said for Nick, with the defensive rebounding, struggles, his finishing has been like slightly above average, I think, around the rim. And like, it's been pretty bad in the short mid range and like slightly above average. It's not going to cut it with some of the things that you're giving up in other areas. It just needs to be better. And like, that's what we saw during that 2022-23 season, I think it was, when he shot like 71% from the field. And it hasn't reached those same heights. So it feels like you're giving up a lot of things in other areas sometimes. And I think that you saw that on a night like tonight. But there were some other guys who turned in encouraging performances. Zaire Williams hit the two biggest shots of the game. And Zaire, I think, has been playing better as of late. Want to talk about him. Danny Wolf, I thought, despite not playing the most minutes, he did close and he had some really impactful plays. And I do want to talk about some of the other rookies, them struggling, them getting benched. So we'll get into all that when we close out Locked On Nets after a quick break. College basketball is nonstop. Big games, tight spreads, momentum swings every single night. From early tip-offs to late-night West Coast shootouts, there's always action on the board. And now FanDuel is giving you a way to turn that energy into even bigger potential wins with a college basketball parlay profit boost. You can build any college hoops parlay you want, rivalry games, ranked matchups, whatever fits your read. You can mix spreads, totals, and player props to match how you see the slate playing out. Then you can apply the profit boost and instantly bump up the potential payout. Go safe, go bold, ride with your team you've been following all season. It's your parlay, your style, now with more upside behind it. Head to FanDuel.com to get started. That's FanDuel.com. FanDuel, play your game. Workplace chaos, deadline stacking up, inbox overflowing, and the one position you have to fill still sitting open. When the pressure's on and you need the right hire, that's a job for Sponsored Jobs. Indeed Sponsored Jobs helps you reach the people who actually fit what you're looking for, skills, experience, location. So you're not just hoping the right candidate stumbles across your post. And here's a stat that says it all. In the minute I've been talking to you, companies like yours made 27 hires on Indeed, according to Indeed data worldwide. So if you're hiring, spend less time searching and more time actually interviewing candidates who check all your boxes. Less stress, less time, more results. When you need the right person to cut through the chaos, that's a job for Indeed Sponsored Jobs. And listeners of this show will get a $75 sponsored job credit to help get your job the premium status it deserves at Indeed.com/podcast. Just go to Indeed.com/podcast right now and support our show by saying you heard about Indeed on this podcast. Indeed.com/podcast. Terms and conditions apply. Need to hire? That's a job for Indeed Sponsored Jobs. All right, coming back from the break, closing out today's Locked On Nets episode with Lucas Kaplan talking about the Nets' 23-point comeback victory over the Detroit Pistons. And Zaire Williams was the guy who hit probably the two biggest shots of the game. He had 2 threes in the final 2 minutes or the final minute. And in this game, let me pull up the stat line. I have it right here. Zaire had 23 points, highest on the team besides Michael Porter Jr., 5 of 8 from the field, 5 of 8 from 3, didn't attempt a 2-point field goal, 8 of 8 from the free throw line. 4 rebounds. So a good game from Zaire. And I think that the clutch shot making, I mean, 2 big time threes in this game. And I think overall his activity, he actually has shown like a little bit of self-creation, like being able to get to the free throw line in these recent games. Like that's not his bag. But, overall, I think that Zaire's a guy who he's been up and down. Like I'm not the highest on his long-term outlook, but I think that his defensive improvement this season, coupled with the fact that on some nights you can get a good 3-point shooting night from him, I think he's shown enough where you can maybe give him a little bit more of an extended audition. Maybe you pick up that team option next season and see what he is. But, I think he can be like an end of rotation guy. But what do you take from this performance overall and Zaire's performance as of late as a whole?
Yeah, he is showing that like he can be a rotation piece perhaps on a good team. The shooting isn't where you want it necessarily. He's kind of settled into this point in his NBA career as a low to mid 30s 3-point shooter. But he only takes high percentage twos. I think that's the biggest thing about his offense this year. So much of it is in transition or if there's, an open lane to the rim. And so he's shooting 60% from 2. It's not super high volume, but like you couple that with a super high 3-point attempt rate. He almost 2/3 of his shots are from 3, and
he's got like 10 or 11 per 100 possessions. He's taken a lot this year,
like legit volume, and that is the sort of player that can fit around a lot of different lineup constructions. If he's also going to be, as he is this year, steal rate above 2, like really handsy, really irritating in the passing lanes if you're an opposing offense. And I think more so than anything, anecdotally, it feels like he's embraced the role this year. It feels like so many more of his games are balls to the wall effort, passing lanes, playing the passing lanes, like hounding guys. I love that he picks up like 3, 4, 5 fouls consistently. Like that to me is the sign of a good Zaire game. Obviously, like fouling all the times are not great. You don't want other teams in the bonus, but it feels like he's committed to that more this year and committed to more of a really rigid shot diet on the other end. And that, teams will take a chance on that in their rotation for sure.
Yeah, I mean, I'm sure if Jordy, the things that he's saying to Zaire, I'm sure it's like, if you're ever open, take the three. Like if you're ever open off the catch, you take that three. We need you picking up. We need you pressuring on defense. We need you hounding opposing ball handlers. And then I'm sure like crash the offensive boards. I mean, defensive activity, like all that stuff. He's really committed to doing that. And, I think that when you look at his offensive skill set, him being a low 30s 3-point shooter, albeit on high volume, and some of the limitations that he has as just like anything he can do off the dribble, off script as a self-creator, I'm not the highest on it, but I think that the defensive activity, the size, the 3-point shooting he has been able to show in spurts, it might be enough to secure a, extended audition with this Nets team. So we'll see. Danny Wolf, next guy I want to hit on, because Danny played, I think he closed the game with this team. He closed the game in that game, and then he finished it with, how many minutes did Danny play? He played 19 minutes, only 8 points, 3 rebounds, 4 assists, 1 turnover, 2 of 3 from the field. But he was a plus 13 in this game, and he had a huge offensive rebound on the final Zaire Williams 3, which was the go-ahead 3. He was in the corner. MPJ took a 3 from the opposite corner. Duncan Robinson kind of lost track of him, and he shot in, tipped the ball to himself, kicks it out to Zaire Williams. That's a game-winning play by Danny Wolf right there. So not the flashiest game from Danny Wolf, but I kind of like that. I kind of like the fact that he was able to show that impact just by kind of doing the little things and making plays around the margin. So we talk about the rookies, like them only playing Ben Surratt 4 minutes. He obviously looked bad. Maybe it was an injury, but Nolan Traore not playing the entire fourth quarter, only playing 3 second-half minutes. Definitely don't like to see that. But Danny Wolf did get some meaningful minutes, and he did make some winning plays and literally a game-winning play. So I thought it was good to see from Danny Wolf. What do you think about his performance in this one?
Yeah, all 8 points and 4 assists were in the second half. It feels like he is more – it really just feels like he's more comfortable with the ball in his hands, and he's mentioned it, and he basically has mentioned, like, yes, I am more comfortable coming off screens and dribble handoffs and bringing the ball up as opposed to being closer to Zaire Williams in terms of everything is off the catch. And he says that's not necessarily something, credit to the self-awareness, he says that's not necessarily what I want to be forever. Like, I do have to get more comfortable with that. But right now, his rookie season, you can just tell that when he is handling the ball, like, yeah, he'll take a step back 3 if he's open. Like, he'll see a driving lane and go, a little bit less thinking about it. And when you're playing mostly next to Terrence Mann as the only other guy that is even kind of a ball handler, then those opportunities will fall in your lap. And I just thought, yeah, more comfortable. Like, they're 3-on-2s, less premeditated decision making, quicker trigger from 3. And this is kind of over the last few games, not just yesterday, but it was a good sign for him to just hang on the court and be a positive against like a very big physical team, even if they were missing Asar and Cade, which makes them a little smaller and less athletic, but just a really positive game for him just to contribute to a win, and majority was going all out,
Yeah, last thing I want to close this out on is just taking it back to the tank conversation, taking it back to the Nets' overall strategy of how they're going to handle this. I got asked on my Fan Take Friday show, like, do you have a prediction for a date where the Nets might shut down these veterans, how they might approach this during the rest of the season? And we touched on it quickly during the first segment, but you look at the Nets' upcoming schedule after this. They have Memphis tomorrow. They're not playing MPJ. Yegor's also out, but Memphis has a ton of guys out. They're tanking really hard, so that could be a win. But then after that, they have a pretty difficult stretch, and then you get to that stretch at the end of the schedule. Like March 29th, they play the Kings for the second time during the stretch to close the season, but it's Kings, Charlotte, Atlanta, Washington, Milwaukee, Indiana, Milwaukee, Toronto. So by the way the Nets handled this game, I'm wondering if they get to that March 29th date, if, that's the date last year where they shut down Cam Johnson, like right around that time. Lucas, if you had to predict right now, do you think that's kind of the point where you're going to see the Nets really start to go all out? Like, what level of confidence do you have that they'll be willing to do that once we get to that point?
Yeah, I see a last 2 weeks of the season looking similar to last year. Maybe April, maybe like the beginning of April, maybe that March 29th game. And I think that's honestly part of like why Yegor is sitting, if I had to guess. Like I'm sure they are really concerned about his plantar fascia injury, but also like they're concerned about the injury, and they felt probably like they've seen what they've needed to see from him this season, and they don't want to overburden him, especially when he's dealing with this, right? And feels like they've seen what they've needed to see from MPJ, no? Like to go into extension talks. And you could probably say the same for Nick and Dayron and all these other, more veteran guys. Grant Nelson had a great game the last time we saw him in Brooklyn and then didn't play really on the road trip. Maybe they're saving up his eligibility. His 10 days almost expiring, but they could sign him to another one. They could sign him to rest of the year two-way, right? So I think that's kind of the plan. I would say those last 2 weeks are when you're going to see rotations similar to last year, which were like, all Reese Beekman, Keon Johnson, Drew Timme minutes.
Yeah, that's the silver lining for a Nets fan who is really worried and upset about this win, which I understand because while the Nets can be rolling out those Reek Beastman type lineups, other tanking teams that they're playing, the Pacers, the Wizards, maybe even the Bucks, can do the same exact thing. So it could turn into like a coin flip at that point, but we will see. They will definitely have a better chance to come away with losses against teams that it could directly benefit them for those teams to pick up wins during that stretch. So we'll see. But Lucas, all we got on today's episode of Locked On Nets. Appreciate taking the time. The Nets have huge tank matchup with the Grizzlies on Monday. Then they're back in action on Tuesday. But yeah, we're going to have a lot more to talk about over the coming weeks, and we'll definitely have you back on. But appreciate taking the time as always. That does it for today's episode of Locked On Nets. Hope you guys enjoyed the talk with Lucas. If you do not already, make sure to subscribe to Locked On Nets on YouTube and wherever you get your podcasts, whether Apple Podcasts or Spotify. If you enjoy my content, take a second right now, smash that like button, leave a comment, leave a 5-star review. Anything you can do to engage is much appreciated. The Nets are back in action with another pivotal tank matchup on Monday against the Memphis Grizzlies. So I'll have coverage of all that and more when I'm back tomorrow talking more Brooklyn Nets basketball.